Hello, this is the mid-season review here at Crystal Racing, where I will be adding up all my scores out of 10 for every driver and dividing it by every eligible race they've competed in this season, including sprint races. So, starting with the worst driver and going all the way down to the best driver, we're going to start off with Nicholas Latifi. And judging by the scores I've given him this season, this might well be the year he finally gets rejected the season. As it is, as the season started off with, of course, right up until Silverstone, Latifi was sitting in 21st place in a 20-driver championship, thanks to, of course, Hulkenberg's 12th place finish, keeping him ahead of the Canadian. And as it stands, of course, Nicholas Latifi is not only 20th on this list, he's 20th on the real-life championship table, and he's the only full-time driver without a single point to his name this season. He was given 2 out of 10 for his, frankly, abysmal showing throughout the entire Australian Grand Prix, colliding with Lance Stroll, and being nowhere near close to Albon's pace whatsoever, who of course scored Williams' first point of the season, but since then though, it has actually improved. Yeah, Latifi also had a crash at Saudi Arabia beforehand, and he was just useless at Bahrain, but since then it's been a smattering of 5, 6s, 7s, and even an 8 out of 10. Yeah, that's right, at Catalonia he got 7 out of 10 for finishing ahead of Albon, and he got 8 out of 10 for Silverstone, where he finished 12th, competing for points at one point. So he was so good to the point that Kimi Räikkönen was clearly standing him as his body double at the British Grand Prix. There was no way it was actually Nicholas Latifi, but even with the 8 out of 10, he has an average score of just 5.385 out of 10. He is miles off behind the guy who is in 19th place, who, just like in real life, not only is he 19th for the actual World Championship table, he's also 19th for this table. It is Sir Lancelot Stroll. Lance Stroll has just been honestly abysmal this season. He has an average score of exactly 6.00. His best performance was, well, I gave him the highest score of 8 out of 10 for, well, finishing 10th at the Imola race. However, I only gave him 6 out of 10 at Miami due to the fact that I'm not entirely sure how he scored a point there. He was just shite, really. I did, however, give him, what was it? 7 out of 10 for scoring a point at Canada. And then, of course, I gave him 7 out of 10 for his fairly okay performance in the sprint race at Austria, but truth be told, most of the scores he's had this season are mostly 5s and 6s. He's been consistently mediocre, that's all I can say. And thanks to Countback, he sits behind Alex Albon, who also has 3 points, but unfortunately, though, on this table, he is absolutely nowhere near Alex Albon in terms of average performance throughout this season, because, yes, I know the Aston Martin has been awful, but Lance Stroll has done nothing to get any more out of it. He's just, honestly, just... You know, I've been giving Lance Stroll all praise in the past 2 years, you know. Yeah, back in 2017 and 18, I used to absolutely hate the bloke. I just couldn't stand him. I hated the fact he came into F1 because he had so much money. But, you know, 2020, he began to impress me more. And 21, okay, he wasn't quite as good as the year before, but he still did produce some decent performances here and there. But this season, he's beginning to look more like the Lance Stroll I despised back in 2017-18 when he was at Williams. Next up in 18th place, it's Yuki Tsunoda, who is in 16th place in the championship, but he's only just ahead of Stroll by a fraction of a point. In fact, he's only got on average score in terms of performances of 6.077. He's just been awful mostly. Yeah, he's had a few 8 out of 10s here and there. He got 9.5 out of 10 for his performance at, I think, what was it, the race at, for finishing 7th at Imola. That was a fantastic drive, by the way. But since then, no, he's not done much. Yeah, he got 8 out of 10 for his performance at Bahrain. Yeah, he got 8 out of 10 for his performance at the sprint race at Imola. And I think I'm trying to work it out with. Yeah, I also gave him 8 out of 10 for finishing 10th at Catalonia, but since then he's just been trash. It's just. He got 4 out of 10 for his abysmal showing at Monaco. He got 3 out of 10 for his performances for crashing out at Canada. 3 out of 10 for taking Gasly out at Silverstone. I just can't be arsed. Honestly, he's going to be facing a disqualification in this race along with Stroll and Latifi, because I can't be arsed with those three, along with another driver who's going to be up very shortly. But it's now time to talk about the guy in 17th place, the only rookie of the grid on this season's grid. So, rookie of the season really has no meaning. It's Zhou Guanyu, who has an average score of 6.083. He's also only just beaten Tsunoda by a fraction of a point, but however, due to his lack of experience, I'm going to cut him a bit of slack. Now, most of his scores this season have actually been 5 out of 10, because, to be honest, he's just been really far off Bottas' pace most of the time. But in the races, he has impressed. Bahrain got an 8 out of 10 for finishing 10th on his F1 debut. And, of course, got 8 out of 10 for his performance at Baku, and 8 out of 10 for finishing 8th at Montreal. There are signs, there is some talent there. He also got 7 out of 10 for his drive at Australia, where he nearly beat Albon for that final point. But really, he's a work in progress. I'm not going to go on any further with Zhou Guanyu, because he has been a victim of a lot of early retirements thanks to mechanical failure, and he was so lucky to escape that crash at Silverstone, which almost could have left him with serious critical injuries. 16th place on this list. Yeah, he actually sits 12th place in the driver standings, but honest to God, this guy surely has to be in his final year of F1. Yes, I know people have talked about Alonso, Vettel and Hamilton retiring from F1, but Daniel Ricciardo is not that far away from joining Kimi Räikkönen at the F1 Old Pensioners Home on the basis of his performance, with an average score of just 6.154 for this season, with a best score of, 8 out of 10 for his performance in a sprint race at Imola, where he finished 6th, but then threw it all away the next day, where he only finished down in 18th, where he only got a 3 out of 10 for his performance. It's just been a god-awful season, really. Yeah, I gave him 8 out of 10 for his performance at Baku and at Austria, but really, though, what else is there to say? He's just constantly miles off the pace of Lando Norris. I'm just not interested in Daniel Ricciardo anymore, and if he doesn't improve, he's in danger of falling behind Lance Stroll and potentially fighting Nicholas Latifi for reject of the season. It's that simple. 15th place, it is, of course, the son of 7 times world champion Michael Schumacher, Mick Schumacher, with an average score of 6.385. His recent performances have lifted his average score quite a bit and has got him out of the top 5, which I'm happy to say, because, of course, at Monaco he scored just 2 out of 10 for crashing out so early on and so needlessly, and then, of course, he got 5 out of 10 for his pathetic showing at Baku. And I have to say, right up at that point, I gave him 8.5 out of 10 for his performance in the sprint race at Imola, where he made up a few places. But really, though, until the last 3 Grand Prix, Mick hasn't done an awful lot this season. But at Canada, he looked like he was going to score points, but his car broke down. And then he finally got his first career points at Silverstone with 8th place. And then, of course, he put the cherry on the cake with with scoring 6th place at the Austrian Grand Prix. Of course, he got 8.5 out of 10 for his performance at Silverstone and a full 10 out of 10 for his race at Austria. Just Mick Schumacher is on the up. However, the driver in 14th place is way ahead with an average score of 7.077. I've got to say, if Mick wants to move up places, he's got to keep banging in these types of performances because the drivers ahead are miles ahead right now. Pierre Gasly is in 14th place, which is, of course, similar to his 13th place position in the real-life World Drivers' Championship. Austria was, in my books, his worst race of the season. However, he's only scored points 3 times this year, which is quite worrying, I have to say, but the AlphaTauri is just awful. Yeah, he's thrown away points, potential points finishes. You know, going slower than Tsunoda at Monaco, meaning he had to go on the alternate strategy, and he finished 11th at Monaco. Could have done a bit more, if I'm going to be honest, but then, of course, there was also, I think, Canada, did he get involved in this day? I think he might have done, but, you know, his best finish was, of course, 5th at Baku, but this season, he's just struggled so much, only scoring 16 points compared to Tsunoda's 11 points. Yeah, I mean, but Austria, though, was his collision at the sprint race start with Lewis Hamilton, made sure that he started really low down for the main race at Austria. And then, of course, he got involved in another collision with Sebastian Vettel. I mean, he literally cost himself points at Austria. I can't defend him for that. And to be honest, some of his performances have been worryingly poor. Yeah, he should have scored points at Bahrain where his car broke down. And then, of course, he got taken out by Alonso at Miami when he was in a points position. He's been unlucky in some respects, but at times he has been really not been anywhere near his high standards like he has been in the past 3 years, 2.5 years, I beg your pardon. Yeah, he needs to improve, but he is still at least got 7 out of 10 for his performances so far this year, and just ahead of him on 7.182 out of 10, arguably driving his best for quite a few years now. Sebastian Vettel has been actually very good this season, scoring 15 points in a real-life Drivers' Championship and sitting in 14th place. For me, he's actually better than Gasly, despite the fact Vettel actually sits behind Gasly. I think Vettel's been better. Missed out the first 2 races due to a positive pandemic test. Then came to Australia and crashed out 3 out of 10. By 4, a terrible start to the season, and I was quite concerned, but then he turned it around at Imola with 8 out of 10 for his performance in the sprint race, and then 9 out of 10 for scoring 8th place in the main race, and all of a sudden the real Sebastian Vettel was back. And he also got 9 out of 10 for his race at Monaco and 9.5 out of 10 for finishing 6th at Baku, with, of course, only half a point being taken off for him going off the road halfway through the race whilst trying to overtake Ocon. But it has to be said, you know, also scoring points again at Silverstone. He's been very, very good this season. I've been impressed. Sebastian Vettel has been very good. I've not said that for quite a while, I have to say. Quite surprising, but, you know, sometimes you can never write some people off. I know I've been saying he should retire for quite a while, but, you know, on the basis of his performances, he actually is worth a place in Formula 1 now. I've changed my mind quite a bit on Sebastian Vettel this season. And, of course, he did produce some very, very good performances at times during 2021 in his first year at Aston. Next up, it is, of course, the guy who is actually in 11th place in the real-life championship, but 12th place on this list. It is Kevin Magnussen. 10 out of 10 for his performance at Bahrain, qualifying 6th or 7th, and then finishing 5th in the race. Oh my word. I could remember watching that race thinking, you should have never been kicked out of Formula 1 for that Russian thing. Having said that, though, he has gradually struggled more and more as this season has progressed, you know, getting involved in that silly incident at Catalonia where he collided with Hamilton at the start, and then he collided with another car, and then, of course, he collided with Hamilton again at Montreal at the start, finishing 17th in both races, throwing away guaranteed points. I mean, and it's kind of why Haas are down in 7th place when they could be fighting for 6th place, but nonetheless, though, I think Kevin's still been very good. He has been scoring most of the team's points, 22 points for Magnussen, 12 points for Mick Schumacher. Haas look revitalised, they look a lot better, though of course Mick Schumacher's crashes have cut some of their budget down when they could be doing with maximising their resources, considering they're a small team. But nonetheless, though, it's been a great return to form for the American team, who have been down in the doldrums for about the past 3 seasons now. Next up, it is Alex Albon, who is sitting in 11th place on this list, but of course in the real life championship he's down in 18th place. Regardless, though, he has been very impressive in my book. I think he's been very good, consistently dragging that car up the order throughout qualifying and in the races. Only once this season has he finished lower than 13th, and of course, which was of course 18th at Spain, and of course he got classified 14th at Saudi Arabia, but that was because of the collision with Lance Stroll. But having said that, he's been very consistently fast, scoring a point at Australia after having started from the pit lane and having made the soft tyres work for 57 laps, or hard tyres was it, and then he pitted on the penultimate lap, grabbing that final point ahead of Zhou, and then of course finishing 9th at Miami. But I will say, though, ever since then it's all been kind of downhill. I've only been giving him 5s, 6s and 7s since then. He started the season off strong, but now he's been struggling a bit in the second quarter of this season. He's got to improve a bit, I've got to say. Yeah, he's still quick in qualifying, but I really want to see a bit more consistency from Alex. And interestingly enough, yeah, there's a huge gap between the bottom 10 and the top 10. And of course, remarkably enough, all of the 10 drivers in the top 10 of my list are currently in the top 10 in the actual real-life World Drivers' Championship, making it all very linear. But I have to say the average scores are much higher than the bottom 10. In 10th place on this list, despite the fact he is indeed sitting 4th place in the real-life Drivers' Championship, has been Carlos Sainz. Yeah, with an average score of 7.91, 7 out of 10, yes, the quality up front has been strong, but Sainz, I think, has been just a little lacking this season. Incidents and spins and crashes throughout qualifying and in races have, been an issue, spinning off on the second lap on Australia, crashing out at Imola. Okay, it wasn't totally his fault. He has been a bit mistake-prone throughout this season, but he did score his first pole and first win at Silverstone. But I will say, though, the team should have prioritised Leclerc in the pit stop strategy, considering Leclerc, in my eyes, is the one who is more likely to win a championship. And of course, with Sainz's engine failure in Austria, of course, Leclerc's the one who returns back to being in the position of actually fighting Verstappen for this year's championship. Of course, I gave him 3 out of 10 for his going off so soon at bloody Australia, but whilst I refused to score him anything at Imola because I felt a bit sorry for him there, but truth be told, I think Sainz has just been lacking a little bit at times, and whilst he has recovered his form in the second quarter of the season with a second place at Monaco, thanks to him getting the pit strategy right by himself and getting second place at Canada after, of course, Leclerc was forced to drive through the field thanks to an engine penalty. It's been a decent season, but he doesn't exactly look like particularly great, though, I have to say. And of course, next up in 9th place, sitting 8th place in the real life World Championship, it is Esteban Ocon. Bit controversial considering he has got 52 points to only 29 points for Fernando Alonso, but truth be told, his consistency has been very much key in his performances this season, not getting into trouble, not banging people off the track, not having reliability issues. He's just been able to keep scoring points consistently, race after race, scoring points in 8 of the main races, and of course scoring points in the sprint race of Australia. He's been very consistent, but really though, when it comes to outright speed, you can always bet your bottom dollar Alonso will be the one in front when it comes to real raw speed. Because seriously, Ocon is mid. He's a good driver, but he's mid. 8th place, Lewis Hamilton. He's got the same identical average score as Esteban Ocon. However, though, because of the fact he has had a couple of performances which I've rated him 9.5 out of 10, he goes in front of Ocon for having, in my opinion, a few more outstanding performances in comparison to the Frenchman. Of course, his worst performance of the season so far for me, and in my opinion, was of course that race at Imola where he finished down in 13th place, but that's the only time he's failed to score points, remarkably enough, and he's had 4 podiums this season in a Mercedes which is really struggling for grip. It's constantly bouncing on the ground, giving the driver severe backache. I think he's done a pretty good job, really, considering the circumstances, but I do think there's at least 7 drivers, in my opinion, who have been better than him, despite the fact he does sit 6th place in the Real Life Drivers' World Championship. 7th place, of course, it's Lewis Hamilton's old foe, Fernando Alonso, who for me has been extremely unlucky this season, retiring at Saudi Arabia whilst running in a strong points-paying position, colliding with Mick Schumacher earlier on at Imola, where I refused to give him any ranking score. Having problems at Australia. Colliding with Gasly at Miami. Kind of his fault, but I still gave him 8 out of 10 because I thought he was pretty good. But since then, though, he's been on a point scoring streak of 6 races now. And it's lifted him right up the table, not only in the real life championship, but also on this table. And once again, at the age of almost 41 years old, he's still the same driver who won back-to-back championships at Renault. 6th place on this driver's list, despite actually only being 9th place in the real life drivers championship. It is indeed. You got that right. Yes, it is indeed. Mr. Valtteri Bottas, who has been absolutely fantastic this season. Just, what can I say? He looks like a new man. Moving to Alfa Romeo has been the thing, the boost, the revitalisation he's needed after years of being Hamilton's lapdog. Bottas looks like he's in his element. He has scored 46 points to only 5 points for Zhou Guanyu. Okay, yes, Zhou's lack of experience is clearly a factor here, but Bottas's consistency has been so useful for Alfa Romeo, scoring 7 times in this season, as well as, of course, scoring in a sprint race at Imola. So technically he scored in 8 races if you count sprint races as 4 races, but they're not. He finished 5th at the Imola main race, of course. And he was all over George Russell, by the way, but of course he decided, nope, I'm going to get the points home. And when he has finished in the points, he's been consistently scoring a lot of points. And thanks to his performances, Alfa Romeo are up in 6th place. And because of that, he deserves to be sitting in 6th place in this driver's list. Although, of course, he actually has exactly the same average score of 8.154 as, of course, 5th place Lando Norris. A bit controversial, I will admit, but in my opinion, McLaren actually have the worst card in Alfa Romeo this season, despite sitting in 4th place. But Lando Norris, once again, carrying the team, 64 points on his part, meaning that McLaren are sitting in 4th place. And because of his podium finish at Imola, it means that they hold on to 4th place on count back ahead of Alpine. Boy, oh boy, I mean, again, the debate is there. Is Lando a future world champion? I don't know. In my opinion, I think if he ever is to win a world championship, he needs to come a bit faster than what Verstappen and Leclerc have. But, you know, if he ever does get a chance to win a championship and he does pull off a championship win, I will be very happy for him. But that does depend, though, on what McLaren do in the future, because I do not see him leaving McLaren anytime soon. 4th place on this list, despite staying in 3rd place in the actual real-life Drivers' Championship, it is Sergio Perez. A massive improvement upon last season's performances. Five 2nd place finishes, along with his win at Monaco, where, of course, unfortunately, he was also caught kissing and cuddling up to a few scantily clad females, and of course it caused some major headlines. But he has, you know, because of his performances, Red Bull lead the Constructors' Championship ahead of Ferrari by now 56 points. He deserves credit. He is a good driver. He is now getting up to the standard of what's needed of a Red Bull number 2 driver. 8.231 out of 10. Of course, Fernando Alonso had 8.09, 1 out of 10. Forgot to mention that. But Perez is sitting in front of what is a very closely contained pack of 7 drivers who are, you know, have all been very close in terms of performance. But I have to say, the driver who is currently in 3rd place on this list is miles ahead of him, with an average score of 8.875 out of 10. Despite sitting down in 5th place in the championship, but having actually managed to finish in 5th place in almost every main race this season, with the exception of Silverstone, where of course he crashed out on the first lap with Zhou and Albon. It is George Russell. Of course, his consistency has been key for Mercedes, help him and Hamilton, helping Mercedes latch on to 3rd place. And not only that, actually only 66 points behind Ferrari, despite the fact that the Mercedes W13 has been a literal wheelbarrow at times. Frankly, the car looks like a piece of wood bouncing across the ground, but Russell and Hamilton have been very, very good on their part, helping the team along. And Russell in particular with his consistency. Yes, I know Hamilton arguably is still the faster driver, but Russell has been so good and so consistent. He deserves credit. 3 podiums this season at Australia, at Catalonia, and at Baku. Yeah, what else can I say? I mean, his worst score so far this season was, funnily enough, him getting 7 out of 10 at Bahrain. But since then, he's been getting at least at worst an 8 out of 10 for his performances, and he also got 10 out of 10 for his performance at Imola with a car that was horrible to drive. Then he got 10 out of 10 for his race at Monaco, and 10 out of 10 for his drive at Baku. He also got 9.5 out of 10 for his performance at the sprint race of Austria, where he finished 4th behind Max and the 2 Ferraris. And what can I say? He's just been very, very good. He has been competing at a level very close to, of course, the top 2. But the top 2 are there for a reason. And of course, if you guessed by now, it is who you are thinking. It's the top 2 in the actual championship in itself, real life championship. Charles Leclerc is in 2nd place with an average score of 9.231 out of 10. And Max Verstappen is on top with an average score of 9.269. Very tiny. I added all their scores up for the season so far, and Max Verstappen's total was only half a point ahead of Leclerc. And when I did the average score, it transpires to be that he's only ahead by 0.038 points. It is that close. But unfortunately, though, Ferrari's strategy team has well and truly let Charles Leclerc down. He needs to stand up to that team. he needs to come up with his own decisions. You know, he's had 3 wins this season. He's had 6 pole positions, but my God, to only have won 3 times is really bad. Compare that to Max Verstappen, who's had 6 wins this year and 3 pole positions. So, of course, one of those pole positions was indeed the Austrian sprint race victory. What I was going to say, really, in my opinion, Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc are the 2 best drivers in Formula 1. Not only does the championship table says it, but they are, in my opinion, the 2 best drivers in F1. And George Russell is the 3rd best driver in F1, but unfortunately, the car he's driving doesn't allow him to capitalise on it, but he is only 5 points behind Carlos Sainz and only 23 points behind Sergio Perez. Lewis Hamilton, despite sitting quite far down this list in 8th place, is actually only about 19 points behind Russell, but Russell's consistency has been, for me, very, very much key. Yes, I know Russell, and I think another reason why Russell is in 3rd place is because of his strategy-making decision. His decision-making has been very good. He's not put a wheel wrong when it's come to strategy. And he was also very good at Catalonia. How can I forget? I gave him 9.5 out of 10 for his performance, fighting Max Verstappen and Perez for the victory. But, of course, his car just wasn't quick enough. As for Leclerc and Verstappen, I think you all know what I think of them. There's not much else to say. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe to Crystal Racing, and I'll see you again soon.